A couple of folks have expressed interest in having videos that goes over the steps for the projects each week. So my goal is to try to post a video each week to help you out. So I'm starting this week with Word 2016 Skills Approach Chapter 8 Challenge Yourself 8.4. This project is due on Monday. Alright, so to get started, like you've done in previous weeks, you will need to download the instructions and you'll also need to download the start file. So when you have the instructions, the first few steps are actually getting your document ready to start. So you'll need to enable editing, save your file. So we'll jump into step 3. So the first thing we want to do is select the picture showing the back of the student's head at the top of the document. So I'm going to click on the picture that's indicated to select it. And then it wants us in step 4 to adjust the picture to have 20% brightness and 20% contrast. So when I clicked on the picture, notice that I got the Picture Tools tab. So I have a formatting tab that's specific to the picture. Once I click off of it, this Picture Tools formatting tab will go away. But while I have it selected, now I can go over here to the Adjust group and I can find how to adjust the contrast, and the brightness and the contrast. And it specifically wants us to have 20% brightness and 40% contrast. So as we kind of scroll through here, you can see we get a little screen tip of what amount of brightness and the amount of contrast. We want to find 20% brightness and 40% contrast. So sometimes you might have to drag off of it and drag back on to get that screen tip. But the second to last one is the option we want to select for this image. All right, so now that we have that changed, the next step asks us to crop the right side of the picture so the boy in the green shirt does not appear in the picture. So we still have this image selected, and you can see with the handles around it that it's selected. So now, still on the Picture Tools Format tab, we can go over to the Size group and we can click on the Crop tool. Now we can crop that picture simply by moving the handle however we want to crop. So it asks us to crop out the student with the green shirt. So I'm going over, I don't know, that may be like a half to a quarter of an inch. All right. So the next step asks us to group the two pictures at the top of the first page so that they are one object. So to group two pictures, you have to first select the first image. So this image, I still have it selected. If by chance you clicked off of it, just simply click on it again. And then you'll hold your control key on your keyboard and click the second image. And you'll notice that you have these handles around both images. So that means we have both images selected. And now we can go up to the Arrange group, and we have the grouping tool, and we can click on Group. Now if you don't have both images selected, that tool is grayed out and you don't have the option to group items together. All right, so now we're going to move on to step 7. It wants us to color the grouped pictures using the blue accent 6 color light color option, the last option in the last row of the gallery. So again, we want to come over here to the Adjust group and we have the color option, and when we click on the more options for that, again, as we scroll our mouse over, we get the screen tips for what the actual coloring is. And I want to find blue accent 6 color light, so I'm on dark. That's blue gray. So the very last option here, blue accents color 6 light, is the one we want to choose for this picture. All right, the last thing we're going to do, oh no, we still have a couple more steps. We want to align the group pictures to the page's right margin. So again, we still have these pictures selected because everything we've done so far has been related to these pictures. But now we want to align them to the right margin. So again, we want to go back to the Arrange group, still on the Picture Tools Format tab, and we want to go to the Align tool. And we have the option to align left, center, right, top, middle, bottom, whatever, but it asks us to align right. So I'm going to click align right. Notice that it actually moved left because the picture was already overlapping beyond the right margin. So that's why it kind of moved left a little bit. All right, so the last thing we'll do for this picture, it wants us to compress the pictures. It says compress all the pictures in the document using the document's resolution and permanently remove any cropped areas. So the last thing we want to do is come back over here to this adjust group and we want to click on compress picture. When we click compress picture, we get a little pop-up that gives us several different options. So the first thing it gives us the option for is delete cropped areas of picture, and we want to do that. It wants us to use the document resolution. Now, it says the very first option up here, and I think normally this is clicked by default, apply only to this picture. Well, the instruction says apply to all pictures. So we want to go ahead and uncheck that. That way, if we have other pictures in this document, that's one less step we have to check later. So we can go ahead and click OK now. And that's all we're doing to this picture. So the next thing we want to do is Step 10, it says in the observation phase section, we want to select the 7 rows of data under the heading and convert the text to a table using the tab character as a separator. So if I scroll down here to the observation phase, I want to select 7 rows. So that means I have to start on this header row and I want to select down all the way across the totals row. And we want to change this. We want to convert it to a table. So to do that, we want to click on the Insert tab and we want to go to this Tables group. And when we click on the options for tables, if we scroll on down, we have the option to convert text to a table. So we want to click on that option. And we get the pop-up here. And it gives us options to choose for the formatting. And we wanted to use the option for tab character. By default, mine was already selected, so I'm simply clicking OK. Now I have that text converted to a table. And it wants us to do the same thing in the implementation phase section. So I'm coming down here and I'm starting with the header row and making sure I'm selecting all the way across the total row. And again, I'm going back to Insert, Table, and I'm going to convert text to table. Again, I get this pop-up, make sure my tabs is selected, and I can simply click OK. So I've got table 2 in here now. The next thing it wants us to do is adjust the top and bottom cell margins for both tables. Okay, so the next step is to adjust the top and bottom cell margins for both tables to be 0.5. So we can just click in the table and then on the Table Tools Layout tab, we have the option to adjust cell margins. So I'm going to click on Cell Margins. We want the top to be 0.5 and we want that bottom to be 0.5 as well. And click OK. Then we can do the same thing on the second table. So just click in one of the cells and then we'll adjust that to 0.5, bottom to 0.5, and click OK. All right, we want to repeat the header row for the table in the implementation phase section. So, and the reason we want to do this is where this table, implementation phase, has broken or was separated onto 2 different pages. If someone's looking at the second page and they just look right at the data, they don't necessarily know what that data represents without this header row. So all we want to do is be in, just select somewhere in that table and then just click repeat header rows. So anytime your page breaks or your table breaks between pages, that kind of helps if you're rather than having to flip back and forth. All right, in the observation phase section, so we're going to go back up to observation phase, we want to place the cursor in the second cell in the last row of the table. And it wants us to add a formula that will sum the values from the cells above the current cell. So repeat this step for the third cell in the last row. So this is pretty simple. Again, we want to have our insertion point in the text box that we're working on, or the cell that we're working in. And again, Table Tools, Layout tab, and over here in the Data group, we have the option for formulas. So click Formula. By default, and this is one of the most frequently used formulas, it has sum above, and that's exactly what we want. So we simply need to click OK. That's just a sum of these values above the bottom cell, or the second cell that we're working in. Do the same thing in the does not raise hand cell. Click Formula, click OK. Now when we get to the last cell, we're doing a little bit different. So for this cell, we want to place the cursor in the last cell in the last row of the table. And this time we want to use a cell reference. So luckily this gives us a little hint, and it tells us what the cell reference is. So we want to enter a formula to determine the percentage of the total number of times the student raised his hand. This result should be the 0% number format. And hint, you need to divide the total of raised hand columns, cell B7, by sum left, and then multiply by 100. And it tells us exactly what that formula should look like. So again, we want to go up on Table Tools, Layout, in our Data group, and we want to click on Formula. This time, we're actually going to type in that formula. So we want to do equals, and we want to do our cell reference is B7. We want to divide it by the sum, and then in parentheses, we want to put left, so that the table identifies that we want to divide the values to the left, and then we want to multiply that by 100. And then it did mention the number format should be 0% format. So I want to change that number format, and then simply click OK. And there we have 3 divided by 19 is 14%. All right, so we want to do the same thing for the implementation phase table. So we want to be in that last row in the second cell. We want to do formula, sum above. Same thing under does not raise hand, formula, sum above. And notice, even though the table's split, it does include the sum from the numbers on the previous page. And then same thing for the percentage. We want to go to formula again. This time we're going to do equals. And note on this one, it's different because this table has 8 rows. The previous table had 7 rows. So we want to put equals B8 this time, divided by sum to the left, and then we want to multiply that by 100. And again, we want to change that number format to 0%. Click OK. And on this one, we have 78%. Okay, so that took care of step 16. So for step 17, we want to select, so we're finished with our tables, so we're going to come on down and we're going to work with this Smart Art object. So it wants us to select the Smart Art diagram at the end of the document. So I'm going to click it to select it, and it wants us to apply the Intense Effect Smart Art style to the diagram. So notice again, each time we're selecting a different object, we have a different tab that does formatting and design for that object. So this time we have the Smart Art Tools tab, and for this one we want to do design, and we have Smart Art Styles here. And we want to find the Smart Art style for Intense Effect. And it's kind of in the middle there. So I'm holding my mouse over it. I see the screen tip, and that's the one I'm going to select. All right. Then the next thing it wants us to do is apply the colorful range accent color 6 to 7 palette. So again, same group, Smart Art Styles, we have changed colors here. And we're looking for the colorful palette, and we want to find 5, 6. And yeah, it's the last one in that row. So we change the colors, and that's it for this project. Once you have that step complete, you're ready to save it. And I'm going to save it to my desktop. All right, so it finally submitted and it's not showing that any of the steps are missed. So if you follow through these instructions, and you can rewind and skip over steps you do not need help with, but if anything you're struggling with, be sure that you're reviewing this until you have it figured out, and feel free to contact me if you have questions. Have a great weekend.